Picture this. Our boy pulls up to the Empire's most prestigious magic academy, with his folks hyped to enroll. But guess what? They don't even catch a glimpse of the front gates. A couple of stuck-up aristocratic snobs cut them off right out of the gate. They smirk, spitting out that filthy peasants don't belong at Arcanist Academy. Just to stir the pot, one of them shoves his mom. Hard. She hits the dirt, and Louis he totally sees red, ready to crash out right then and there. He's itching to rearrange their faces. But his parents pull him back. They beg him to keep his eyes on the prize, the entrance exam, and not throw his future away over some street brawl. So he bites his tongue. Getting zero reaction, the bullies practically pout. They were desperately craving an excuse to beat down a commoner, just for kicks. But that window closes. What these arrogant fools don't realize, though, Louis is mentally carving a blood oath. The second he secures his spot in this school, he is going to make those elitist jerks suffer. Brushing off the disrespect, he beelines it to the testing grounds. We're talking thousands of hopefuls swarming the area, and pretty much everyone towers over him in age. Honestly, though, he couldn't care less. Suddenly, the headmaster steps up to the mic, officially kicking off the trials. Round 1. A brutal stair climb, heavily guarded by the Academy's terrifying upperclassmen. The golden tickets to pass are chilling right behind these student bouncers. And get this, only a clean 1,000 rookies are making it through. It is totally first come, first served. The moment those passes vanish, the game is over. Boom. The timer starts. The mob sprints up the steps, totally convinced this is going to be a walk in the park. Until one totally unhinged senior steps forward to serve up a literal nightmare. He unleashes this suffocating dark energy. A crimson wave of pressure explodes over the crowd, paralyzing the rookies and dropping them to the pavement like flies. Loudspeakers blast their contestant numbers, branding them with a massive disqualified. The kids in the back are completely tripping out, having zero clue what just hit them. But our boy, he reads the room instantly, standing dead center in the panic. Our guy casually strolls forward, calling out that nobody actually got hit. That flex. It was just raw aura meant to mess with their heads. Anybody with a fragile ego or weak mental game just folded under the sheer terror. The upperclassman locks eyes with Louis immediately. He clocks that this kid is built different, that he's actually got some serious grit. Still, the elite ranks are already packed, and this snob absolutely refuses to let some street rat pollute their bloodline. Louis instantly writes this guy off as a massive clown. Smirking, the senior mutters that since a peasant dared to show up, he is going to make him suffer. He cranks up his aura to the max, blasting a suffocating, bloodthirsty pressure. The weaker kids practically choke on the paralyzing fear. But for Louis, it is literally a light breeze. He just stands there on the steps, flashing a cocky grin, thinking this so-called killing intent is a joke. Sure, it might make regular NPCs wet their pants, but for a guy who has survived real hell and grinded his stats in the shadows, it is absolutely nothing. Flexing his pure martial arts, Louis violently dashes up the steps, slicing right through that oppressive energy. With nothing but insane mental fortitude, pure rage is fueling, itching to show these pampered aristocrats what real, unfiltered bloodlust actually feels like. He launches himself like a missile at the senior, winding up a devastating hook while the entire crowd watches absolutely gagged. Even the upperclassman is totally shook, baffled that a nobody just tanked his ultimate flex. But a millimeter from shattering the guy's nose, Louis slams the brakes. He smirks as cold sweat drips down the senior's pale face. The crowd completely loses it, mind blown that this kid is what, barely 13 or 14. Yet he is packing so much raw sauce that he casually brushed off a lethal aura attack and nearly knocked a top-tier student out cold, all without casting a single spell. But our boy, he couldn't care less about their dropped jaws. He just ghosts past the senior, snatching his token and muttering that this whole circus is getting old. Obviously, the senior's ego shatters at the disrespect. Boiling with rage, he throws a cheap, blind-sided haymaker right at Louis's head. But in a split second, Louis effortlessly deflects it. The bully is left trembling and completely glitched out. A literal peasant just parried his heavy strike, using 0 mana. Before things get bloody, his voice booms across the courtyard, officially crowning our boy as the very first applicant to clear the trials. He drops a heavy reality check on the crowd inside these walls. Blue blood or dirty boots, everyone is on an even playing field. You are human before you are royalty. The humiliated senior awkwardly bows, and even Louis gives a chill nod of respect to the old man. The headmaster then strolls right up to Louis, giving him his props. But mid-sentence, he freezes, locking his eyes onto the kid's unique hair color. He drops a massive hint that it is extremely problematic, keeping the actual reason totally vague. Louis instantly gets a bad vibe, his internal alarm bells ringing like crazy. Swallowing his paranoia, he keeps his cool and demands to know what the old man is getting at, but the principal shuts him down. Leaning in with dead serious eyes, he whispers that if Lewis actually enrolls, he will personally brew a highly classified elixir to mask his dangerous genetic traits. Lewis is totally lost for a second, and his mind races. Is the headmaster messing with him, running some kind of twisted mind game? He shakes it off. Whatever the old man is plotting, it can wait. Right now, he has got a second trial to crush. Lewis turns his back and walks off, leaving the headmaster in the dust. Meanwhile, that stuck-up noble he totally humiliated earlier is glaring daggers at him. The headmaster has literally never interfered in a test before, and he just broke protocol to save a regular nobody. The rich kid is seething, swearing he is going to make Lewis pay for wrecking his ego. Fast forward a bit, and the survivors of round 1 get herded into a massive indoor battle arena for the next phase. The brutal reality. Out of 20,000 hopefuls, only a cool 1,000 managed to scrape by. And spoiler alert, most of them are pampered aristocrats with top-tier training. Lewis is just chilling at the back of the pack when bam, some dude deliberately shoves him. Big surprise, it is another arrogant rich kid looking for. The guy smirks, spitting out that no one is going to swoop in to save him this time, tossing in a nasty jab about his class, just to be toxic. Lewis does not even flinch, he is ice cold. Then the bully's little sidekick chimes in, yapping about how if the headmaster had not played hero, Lewis would already be kicked to the curb. But this time, our boy claps back. He straight up calls the guy a clown, pointing out that a grandmaster like the headmaster obviously has way better taste than some bottom-tier trust fund babies. The bully snaps. His fragile ego cannot handle the disrespect, and he threatens to lay Louis out cold. Louis just gives him a mocking smirk, which pushes the rich kid totally over the edge. He launches a wild punch right at Louis's face, but Lewis is already a ghost. He dodges at the very last microsecond, snapping back with a flawless martial arts counter that sends violent shockwaves ripping through the bully's nervous system. It is Meridian Severance, a devastating spiral strike that totally short-circuits the body's energy, and the arrogant noble gets launched across the room like a broken rag doll. The rest of the squad scrambles to their wrecked buddy, instantly making a massive scene. The guy who just got folded desperately thrashes around on the floor. His eyes go wide. His arm is totally dead, and his legs refuse to work. Pure panic takes over. He screams that Lewis used some kind of cheap poison and threatens to snitch to the academy guards. On the spot, Lewis casually calls him pathetic. No poison here, bro. Just pure unmatched skill. Honestly, Lewis has been seriously holding back, all because he promised his mom he would keep his head down. But everyone has a breaking point. Push him and you get wrecked, or worse. Louis lives by one solid rule. If you throw hands, you better be ready to catch them. He winds up his fist to finish the job. But out of nowhere, a hand clamps onto his wrist, shutting him down. It is the Academy's ultimate golden boy, Lord Kane. Kane drops some hard facts. They are literally in the middle of an exam, so they need to chill out. He warns that if Lewis keeps throwing punches, he is getting instantly disqualified. That hits Lewis like a bucket of ice water. He violently yanks his arm out of Kane's grip, shoots the golden boy a lethal glare, and turns his back. Kane then pivots to face the screaming squad of bullies. He flashes them an icy, dead-eyed stare, ordering them to shut their mouths and back down. The rich kids instantly fold, scrambling away, though their eyes are still practically burning with toxic rage. Lewis tracks Kane's every move, convinced this guy is just another privileged elite, flexing his status to keep people in line. But Kane completely flips the script. He praises Lewis, calling him insanely strong and fearless, and actually pitches the idea of teaming up if Lewis is down for it. Before Lewis can even process that a massive mob of fangirls swarms Kane, desperately begging to join his squad because they are totally obsessed. Within seconds, half the guys are crowding him too, acting like wild groupies. Lewis files that little interaction away in his brain, but his downtime is officially over. Out of nowhere, a blinding tornado of light erupts right in the middle of the Coliseum. Principal Smith materializes from the glow, booming his voice across the room. The second phase is a raw power check. Before anyone can even blink, a strange burning symbol ignites on everyone's chest. The candidates stare down in pure panic, clueless about what is going down, but Kane instantly clocks it. It is a high-level Earth attribute spell. A crushing wave of gravity slams into the crowd. Their bodies feel like they just got buried under tons of concrete. Dozens collapse. Even the golden boy Kane grinds his teeth muscles, trembling as he fights the insane pressure. But then he spots something absolutely wild. Someone is literally strolling through the gravity field like it is a walk in the park. Kane forces his heavy head up, watching Lewis casually march onto the main stage, locked in and ready to dominate the next trial. The headmaster's jaw drops slightly, but a deeply satisfied smirk creeps across his face. Proving everyone wrong yet again, our boy shatters the insane pressure. He just keeps walking forward, absolutely unstoppable. After grinding martial arts for 3 or 4 years, the crushing gravity is still, and the pressure keeps stacking. Kane can literally feel his bones screaming under the weight. So when he catches Lewis chilling there, no formal training, he cannot fathom what kind of crazy stats our boy is hiding. Right then, Principal Smith drops the rules. Only the candidates who are still on their feet get to advance. With a quick flick of his wrist, he summons an entire arsenal of weapons, telling anyone who wants an edge to grab one. Our MC casually strolls up and claims a heavy-duty blade, while the rest of the NPCs are out here fighting for their lives. Half of them can barely stand, let alone wield a weapon. Boom, Phase 2 kicks off, and there is a massive plot twist. Principal Smith announces they are spawning bound life forms. The crowd is totally clueless. But before anybody can even ask what that means, the principal just vanishes. Out of nowhere, someone screams to look up. They tilt their heads and spot these neon blue blobs. They are raining from the sky, splatting all over the arena like giant bouncy jelly drops. Honestly, they look completely harmless, especially after dealing with those terrifying upperclassmen. The system quickly lays out the rules. Landing a hit gets you 1 point, dodging scores you 2, and actually obliterating one nets you 5 points. Your leaderboard rank is entirely based on your score, and only At first, these arrogant kids just laugh, calling the slimes absolute fodder. They blindly rush in, expecting an easy win. But the second a weapon connects, the slimes instantly enter aggro mode. They speed up drastically and just body check the student. The impact is brutal. That cute, squishy vibe vanishes instantly as they go completely berserk. Launching into one competitor after another, sheer panic infects the arena as a massive swarm of slimes takes over. The entire battlefield dissolves into absolute chaos. High above the madness, Principal Smith and the proctors are analyzing every single move. One proctor reports that some heavy hitters from elite bloodlines are in the mix, including top-tier prodigies linked to the Arunk. She also name-drops the Durahan house, but points out some wildly unpredictable wildcards scattered among the rookies. She specifically zeroes in on the kid who completely dominated the first trial. Principal Smith just smirks. He admits that guy has definitely caught his attention. But the proctor brings up for a solid minute, Lewis has not budged an inch, and they are stressed he is going to flop right out of the gate. The other rookies notice his AFK status and figure he finally cracked under pressure. But they are dead wrong. Right as a slime winds up to blast him, Lewis is just standing there, cool as ice, halfway turned around. His situational awareness is off the charts. The exact millisecond the slime tries to bulldoze him, our boy slips right past it. In literally 2 seconds, he makes it look like a breeze, leaving everyone shook by his insane mobility. The slime starts crackling with energy and fires off a second strike, packing way more firepower this time. Suddenly, a whole squad of them rushes him at once. But honestly, Lewis is totally dialed in for this. Off-screen, he was putting in some hardcore, brutal prep work. He actually forced his buddies to pelt him with solid rocks. They were terrified of injuring him, but he hyped them up to test a wild theory. Back in his past life, he cooked up a crazy hypothesis. If he could hardwire his brain to blast sensory data straight from his parietal lobe to his cerebellum, he could mathematically predict any incoming strike, giving him zero input lag. If he could constantly map out trajectories, so he tanked a literal hail of rocks, firing up his ultimate martial arts technique. He mapped the flight path of every single projectile weaving through them with pinpoint, terrifying accuracy. His friends were absolutely paralyzed. They swarmed him, begging to know what kind of cheat code he just used. Lewis casually dropped the name of his technique, Void Combat Calculation. It went totally over their heads, but for him, it confirmed his massive brain play. Cut back to the second exam. Our MC triggers Void Combat Calculation once more. As the monster squad blitzes him, his brain instantly crunches their speed and attack angles. Yeah, they are insanely fast and hit like trucks, but here's the catch. They can only launch in a dead straight line. That makes their geometry completely predictable. With minimal footwork, he glides through every single strike, racking up 8 points in a flash. Then he unsheathes his blade and unleashes his force slash technique. His sword just melts right through the slimes. Slicing them completely in half, his score skyrockets. Kane is just standing there. Even the elite proctors snap their heads toward Principal Smith in pure disbelief. They are completely stunned by how accurately Lewis reads the battlefield like an open book. It totally clicks in Kane's head. Lewis isn't some random peasant. The dude is an absolute beast, a master-level fighter, packing insane combat mechanics. Kane instantly craves a team-up, knowing damn well that rolling with a powerhouse like him is a massive shortcut to the top. Suddenly, another slime lunges straight for our guy. Lewis winds up for a lethal strike, but out of nowhere, another blade crashes into his. They are gunning for the exact same prey. Lewis glares daggers at the intruder, totally annoyed that Kane is trying to swipe his kill. Waving his hands frantically, Kane swears he is not trying to leech off our hero, but rather he pitches a massive brain play farming points as a duo. Lewis narrows his eyes, totally skeptical, since backstabbing is basically the name of the game in this arena. Flashing a cocky smirk, Kane dares him to turn this whole bloodbath into a high-stakes point farming that immediately hooks our boy's competitive side. He smirks back and locks in, tightening his grip on his hilt. Lewis flexes his aura, promising to unleash his true, unfiltered power. While the two warriors stand back to back in the chaos, a squad of salty, privileged nobles spots the perfect opening to snipe the commoner and farm easy points. A cowardly archer lets loose a volley of lethal arrows right at Lewis's blind spot. Our boy shifts his stance. The whole stadium gasps in horror, fully convinced he just got obliterated. Yet the smoke clears, and our hero has not even flinched. The fatal shot completely failed to connect. He casually snatched all 3 deadly shafts right out of thin air with his bare hand. Kane snaps his head back, asking if Lewis is good, completely enraged by the incredibly toxic cheap shot tactics. Hearing Kane call him trash totally triggers the elite sniper. Boiling with rage, he chants his ultimate spell Double Arrow Edge, and violently unleashes a massive barrage. Kane goes into overdrive, weaving through the assault, and slashing the magical projectiles out of the sky with flawless swordplay. But one single razor-sharp arrow sneaks past his defense, zooming directly for his heart. A sudden burst. Shutting his eyes tight, he prepares to feel his chest get blown open. But the agonizing pain simply never hits. Snapping his eyes open, he spots Lewis standing like a total guardian angel right in front of him, crushing the deadly arrow in his iron grip. Thick, dark blood drips down Lewis' palm, but the badass does not even wince. He coolly tells a freaking out Kane to chill, revealing that the cowardly attack was locked onto him the whole. Up in the VIP booth, an eagle-eyed judge squints, pointing out that strike was straight-up attempted murder, not an exam tactic. He pressures Principal Smith to kick the toxic nobles out immediately, but the headmaster casually raises a hand ordering him to sit tight. Smirking slightly, the principal predicts the bullies are about to get themselves wrecked anyway. Plus, he wants to sit back, watch the fireworks, and deal with the fallout. He then orders the staff to stockpile high-tier healing potions, sensing deep down that Louis is about to start snapping some serious noble bones. Down in the dirt, our hero turns to his new bro, and casually asks, obviously that sport does not even exist in this fantasy world, but Lewis is absolutely hyped to give a live demonstration. Right on cue, a massive slime rockets directly at his face. Pivoting like a major league slugger, he swings his massive blade. Crack! The electrified slime turns into a high-speed cannonball, launching across the arena and violently crashing right into the snobby squad. The ringleader tanks the full explosive impact. You can literally hear his ribs shatter as he is violently blasted out of bounds, catching an instant humiliating disqualification. But Louis is not even close to done. He blitzes forward like a demon, closing the gap on the surviving elites, who are completely paralyzed after watching their. One panicking kid tries to whip around, but his reaction time is pitifully slow. Lewis smoothly backflips over the guy's head and fiercely roundhouse kicks a bouncing slime ball squarely into his jaw. The brutal shockwave caves his face in, rattling his teeth, as he is violently launched into the spectator stands. Another elite bites the dust. Now only the final coward is left. Dripping in cold sweat, his eyes dart around frantically, completely terrified of where the Grim Reaper will pop up next. Total panic hijacked. In a flash, our guy ghost steps right behind him, chillingly whispering for him to turn around. Yet even staring death in the face, the arrogant brat refuses to drop his ego. He keeps spewing toxic trash, screaming that upperclassmen are gods, and that filthy peasants need to bow down and stay in their lane. Blinded by his own raging superiority complex, he misses the shadow stepping into his path. The very next second his ankle catches, and he pathetically faceplants right off the edge of the arena. The mastermind behind the trip, Kane. With that hilarious tumble, the final piece of trash catches a big fat disqualification. Brushing his hands off, Kane strolls over to give Lewis a massive shout-out. He immediately locks eyes on the hand Louis used to catch the deadly arrow, but to his absolute surprise, it is already tightly wrapped up in a fresh bandage. The two warriors slap a solid, ringing high five. Flashing a smirk, our boy admits that for a snobby aristocrat, Kane is actually incredibly cool. The dynamic duo instantly bolts a massive horde of gooey monsters hot on their heels, Mid-sprint, Kane practically begs Lewis not to lump him in with the panting. He drops some heavy lore, explaining that, while the Empire is packed with legendary bloodlines, he hails from the absurdly overpowered Aranka clan. These are not just rich kids with trust funds. These top-tier houses, because of their god-tier legacy, they flex an insane amount of political muscle. We are talking world-breaking authority that straight-up challenges the kings, the highest nobles, and even the elite magical academies. Lewis mentally files away these sick new names and titles, completely captivated as they keep throwing hands. Meanwhile, the snobby bullies are locked onto Louis. Watching him totally demolish the competition gets under their skin. No way are they letting some low-born peasant snatch up their precious points, so they dive-bomb Lewis and Kane all at once. Kane's hardcore loyalists instantly freak out, seeing their precious young lord in the crosshairs, and they sprint in to form a human shield. In a flash, pure, absolute chaos erupts around our duo. Kids who just came to flex their skills are now throwing each other under the bus. The whole arena instantly devolves into a fierce battle royale, with absolute mayhem everywhere. Just a few feet away, Faye is just chilling, watching the madness unfold like it is a movie. She waves her bestie Miliana over, hyping her up to jump in and start wrecking the other elites. Lewis is out here looking like a ninja, smoothly sidestepping slimes, with his insanely clean martial. But he clocks the vibe shift students are straight up hunting each other now. He instantly realizes that if he keeps farming points like a boss, he is going to paint a giant target on his own back. Right then, he catches Miliana casually slicing through the nobles like they are butter. Faye is also putting on an absolute masterclass, and right next to her, a red-haired dude named Neil Gunn, looking like an absolute wild card. This kid is swinging a massive hammer like a madman, literally sending people flying while screaming that smashing students is way more fun than farming slimes. He is practically a walking natural disaster, bulldozing through opponents left and right. High up in the VIP stands Principal Smith, and the proctors are glued to the madness. One panicked proctor begs to pull the plug, terrified the rich kids will get totally wiped out. But Smith, he is not having it. He smirks, claiming that watching these prodigies tear each other apart is prime entertainment. Another examiner sweats, warning that failing too many elites will spark massive backlash. Smith just shrugs it off. He straight up says he could not care less about the public outcry. He wants to see this wild showdown through. Then, out of nowhere, he literally drops right into the center of the arena, instantly pulling the plug on round 2. He shouts that the final scoreboard for the survivors will drop in a bit. He dispels the hardcore earth magic, and medics start passing out healing potions to the battered kids. Lewis stares at his vial like it is liquid gold. A basic potion like this costs 3 whole silver coins, way out of his broke boy budget. Kane catches his starry-eyed look and asks what is up, jokingly promising not to bully him even if he snags the win. Moments later, Smith finally drops the massive leaderboard. The snobby nobles start grinning when they cannot spot Lewis's name anywhere. But here is the crazy twist. The top 5 absolute gigachads utterly shattered all Academy records, so Smith is hyping them up with a separate announcement. Coming in hot at 5th place is the unstoppable Miliana Royce. 4th goes to our boy Kane Aranka, while the fierce Faye Durahan clutches 3rd. Bagging an insane 87 points, Lewis steals 2nd place. Kane's jaw literally hits the floor, not just because Lewis outscored him, but because no commoner in history has ever thrown down like a god like that. Still, Kane takes his massive L like an absolute gentleman, admitting he lost their little wager and asking what his punishment is. Lewis just smirks, telling him he will cash in that favor after the exams. Then, Smith drops the bomb for 1st place. With a mind-bending 88 points, the crown goes to that unhinged, red-haired menace, who was just treating the arena like a mosh pit. Neil is out here still smiling like an absolute maniac. The whole crowd is whispering about his god-tier strength, especially since this random nobody just clowned on the actual Durahan heir. Miliana starts sweating when she sees Faye literally shaking with rage, but Faye instantly locks in, gulps down her pride, and boldly claims she is dying to lock horns with a beast like that. Meanwhile, the upperclassmen are seething, absolutely mauling that their precious elite freshman just got swept by the proctor is mind-blown, muttering that a commoner snagging 2nd place has not happened since the school literally opened. And the craziest part, both of these absolute units came straight out of an orphanage. Principal Smith drops some wisdom, revealing the Arcanist Association secretly runs that orphanage, proving that real raw talent comes from the streets, and totally wrecks the myth that bloodline is everything. With that mic drop, he orders the survivors to march on to the next challenge. On the way, Kane brings up how Lewis was literally 1 point away from clutching 1st, openly wondering who would win in a one-on-one. Lewis, however, totally ghosts the question, too chill to care. Within minutes, the squad rolls up to the massive training grounds. Principal Smith hypes up the ultimate finale, a hardcore survival test, a pure battle royale for emblems, and starts tossing them out to the squad. The mission: hoard as many of these badges as humanly possible, and literally any dirty trick in the book is 100% legal. Drop your badge and you are instantly out of the game. When the dust settles, only the top 10 players with the biggest stash are walking through those academy doors. Kane shoots his new buddy a serious look, dropping the news that they need to split up and fly solo for a bit. He slips him a massive warning. Everyone who crushed the earlier ranks just painted a giant target. Basically, he needs to watch his six. Lewis locks eyes with him and swears he is making it out of this forest alive, whatever it takes. He sees right through the Academy's twisted game. Dropping those second exam rankings was a calculated move to spark a total bloodbath. Up in the stands, Principal Smith flashes a wicked grin, practically daring these kids to unleash absolute chaos and flex their— After all, only the absolute beasts survive this meat grinder. The siren blares, and Lewis is already prowling through the dense woods, hyper-fixated on the fact that his dream academy is literally inches away. Losing is 0% an option, but out of nowhere a shadow blocks his path. It is one of those entitled aristocratic NPCs, lunging at him with pure venom, screaming that Lewis completely clowned the entire upper crust during the last trial. A quick glance over his shoulder reveals two more rich kid goons, rushing him from the blind side. He is totally cut off, with zero backup coming to save him. What these clueless scrubs do not realize is that Lewis is not the prey here. Honestly, these bozos are the ones who desperately need a bodyguard. His eyes dart up, catching a sniper perched in the canopy, drawing back a heavy bowstring. It hits him instantly. The shady reception staff absolutely doxed his coordinates. With the whole squad locked and loaded, the lackeys swarm him. Lewis just dances through their strikes, slipping past their blades like an absolute ghost. A violent surge of energy ripples through the air. Instinct takes over, and he barely deflects a brutal blast with the flat of his sword. His brow furrows. That was not a normal weapon, and he has zero clue what just hit him. Before he can process it, the main thug is back in his face, spitting literal death threats. But Louis is not about to fold. He starts laying into the entire mob, dodging and weaving, until— bam! Another one of those insane invisible shockwaves blasts toward him. He sidesteps it by a hair, but now he is getting seriously ticked off. Turns out one of these spoiled brats is spamming magic arrows from a distance, cackling at Lewis, like he is a complete joke for having zero mana. But that smirk vanishes instantly, melting into pure rage as our guy casually weaves through every single magical projectile. Inside, though, Lewis is sweating bullets. Magic does not follow standard physics, so he cannot predict the flight path. He is flying blind and has to lean entirely on his raw, hard-earned— He locks into a legendary stance called Sen no Sen. It is an elite counter-timing technique, basically striking the microsecond before the enemy attacks, turning their own— The ringleader absolutely loses it, barking at his entire crew to just rush him all at once. The whole pack barrels toward our boy like wild dogs. Oh, but he is locked in now. He flows through the chaotic dogpile, slipping their clumsy swings, and using his blade to expertly redirect their own kinetic energy, forcing the goons to crash into each other in a spectacular train wreck. Even when the caster spams another volley of magic arrows, Lewis dips at the absolute last millisecond, baiting the spell right into one of the charging thugs. He physically chucks the stunned lackey aside, like literal garbage snatches up a dropped spear, and totally snipes the archer hiding up in the branches. Boom. One by one, he systematically wipes the floor with the entire squad, snatching up their shiny badges and letting out a breathless chuckle. One stubborn tryhard actually tries to rally his battered buddies for round 2. Out of nowhere, Kane swoops in, slamming his heavy bow right into the guy's skull and flooring him. Kane is just chilling in the branches above, casually spectating the bloodbath. He mentally notes that our protagonist is absolutely helpless when it comes to spellcasting. The surviving bullies are shook, freezing in absolute panic, since Kane was supposed to be completely out of the picture. Kane flexes that he already dismantled their little ambush squad elsewhere. The loudmouth aristocrat keeps yapping, so Kane just brutally bonks him on the dome with his bow again, until the dude finally shuts his trap. Dropping down from the canopy with effortless drip, Kane lands smoothly, while Louis just sighs. Finally Kane shrugs it off, roasting the attackers as bottom-tier snobs, trying to flex day 1 spells, calling the whole rescue mission a total breeze. He flips Lewis the final badge he looted, then steps uncomfortably close. He drops the casual act warning that if Lewis keeps pulling aggro like this, he is going to get wrecked, and low-key offers to team up. Our guy instantly shuts that down, brushing him off and insisting he handles his own messes without— From the shadows, Faye has been binge-watching the entire drama. She steps out slow clapping to mock Lewis's whole lone wolf honor code. But she is definitely not here to make friends. Cutting straight through the nonsense, she locks eyes with our boy and bluntly demands a one-on-one duel. Kane immediately panics, whispering to Lewis that this chick is literal royalty, the granddaughter of the Doulahan family's terrifying Grand Master. Lewis side-eyes his buddy, asking if he has ever acted. Kane gets super awkward, nervously coughing and violently denying any friendly connection, but sheepishly admits they have crossed blades once. He tries to save face, making excuses about totally dropping his guard and slipping up during their spar. Lewis instantly bursts out laughing, roasting him for taking a massive L against her. Kane aggressively starts backpedaling, rambling excuses. Before the boys can keep roasting each other, Faye aggressively cuts in, rolling her eyes and telling them to wrap up their little bromance and stop flirting on the battlefield. She throws down the gauntlet one more time, radiating pure boss energy. Kane frantically whispers a final warning. She is already a cracked magic user, literally sitting at the apprentice tier, which is insanely overpowered for teenagers. He begs our boy to just ghost her and stick to grinding out those badges instead of committing suicide. Faye gets visibly irritated, mercilessly flaming both of them for acting like massive cowards. She spits that Kane is just projecting his own past trauma and totally infecting Lewis with loser energy. Knowing he's practically guaranteed to take an L, she actually has the nerve to call Lewis a coward. That instantly gets under his skin. Even Kane is visibly annoyed by the absolute disrespect. But Louis steps right up, his ego officially bruised. He stares her down, claiming he's been dying to witness how a top-tier noble family throws hands. Challenge completely accepted. Faye flashes a wicked smirk, admitting she totally digs his crazy vibe. To keep things on an even playing field, she announces zero magic will be used. Then boom. Without skipping a single beat, she blitzes forward and drops her ultimate hidden move. Lance slam gunning straight for our guy's head. Lewis stays completely glued to the floor. The weapon seemingly crushes him. Faye flashes a triumphant grin, not because she landed the kill shot, but because at the absolute last microsecond, our boy subtly pivots his torso, trapping the deadly polearm right against his bicep. Faye violently yanks her weapon free, whipping it around in a razor-sharp 360-degree arc, forcing Lewis to break his grip and instantly chains into another brutal lance slam. Yet again, Lewis barely slips past the lethal strike. Way up in the stands, the Proctors are glued to the intense showdown. They mutter about how it's been literally ages since they witnessed the legendary Doulahan family spear. Arts in action. They're completely blown away by Faye's insane speed and raw power, straight up labeling her a generational prodigy. Still, those same Proctors admit Louis is putting up a wild fight, sparking a betting pool on exactly how long he'll actually survive. One guy bets he'll crumble any second now. Then they pivot to the principal, desperately demanding his prediction on the final winner. The principal drops the brutal truth. He totally vibes with the new kid, but beating Faye is basically impossible, since real combat is a hardcore clash of flesh and willpower. Our rookie simply lacks the battlefield experience to pull off an upset. Meanwhile, down in the arena, massive dust clouds explode across the battlefield as Faye viciously lunges at our protagonist. He immediately shifts into absolute defense mode. Spotting a microscopic opening, he violently counters, slamming Faye so hard she nearly fumbles her precious weapon. That absolutely triggers her. Taking advantage, Lewis vaults directly over her head, touching down right in her blind spot. She grits her teeth, utterly mind-blown that he actually dodged her entire kit. Not even Kane from the elite Iranka bloodline could survive that barrage. But to Lewis, it's honestly light work. As long as he perfectly tracks her movements, the whole fight feels like slow motion. Taking that as a personal insult, Faye aggressively ups the ante. She explodes forward, unleashing her deadliest hidden art, Lance Crescent Fall. His brain instantly dissects the incoming threat. He quickly calculates that polearm combat relies heavily on piercing wide sweeps and heavy suppression. Combine all that with insanely long reach, and it's a massive headache to deal with. But just as he feels the crushing pressure of her assault, his sharp eyes lock onto a glaring flaw. Spears are practically useless in extreme close quarters. All he literally has to do is perfectly time his approach, aggressively close the gap, and strike. Spotting his golden window, he explodes into a counter-offensive, but Faye smoothly dashes out of the danger zone. Re-engaging instantly, she screams that her family's legendary spearmanship literally has zero blind spots. Whipping her blade into a massive destructive tornado, she engulfs the arena. Up top, the judges are left totally speechless by her god-tier talent. Historically, even the Doulahan family's grandmaster couldn't unlock this insane move until age 16. By flawlessly weaving arcane magic into her martial arts, Faye easily eclipses everyone in her generation. On the surface, it seriously looks like our guy is totally cooked, But here's the crazy plot twist. Louis is secretly holding some wild cards of his own. He actively deploys the intricate sword net style. You see, the second massive downside to a heavy spear build is the absolutely brutal stamina drain. If Louis just maintains perfect pinpoint defense, her gas tank will eventually hit 0, leaving a massive opening. There's just one tiny lethal problem: his blade is quietly fracturing into pieces. Meanwhile, Faye is getting insanely triggered that this nobody refuses to just stay down. Finally, the perfect opening presents itself. Louis violently lunges for the finishing blow, but in that exact critical millisecond, his cheap sword leaving the entire crowd utterly stunned. Pausing the slaughter, Faye actually praises his insane skill, openly admitting that if his gear hadn't failed, that counter would have totally wrecked her. While Louis mentally curses his absolutely trash luck, Faye catches on to the fact that he's been massively holding back this entire time. Louis simply shrugs, apologizing for his toxic little habit. He's practically addicted to downloading his opponent's entire moveset before actually trying. But now that he's fully analyzed her kit, the kid gloves are completely coming off. Faye scoffs, assuming the duel is officially over, since he's literally unarmed. But Louis just drops into a flawless combat stance. Plot twist: he's infinitely deadlier. The tension skyrockets as both fighters prep for round 2. Exploding off the back foot, Faye launches a devastating high-speed drill charge right at his chest. From the sidelines, Kane screams that tanking that hit will literally rip Louis apart. But our boy, he's fully locked into his ultimate flow state. With absolutely zero fear, he violently clamps his bare hands onto the spiraling blade, freezing her ultimate strike in its tracks. The VIP judges practically fall out of their chairs. Faye's signature strike is literally engineered to shred right through armor. Yet the armor-piercing effect completely fizzles out, leaving the elite veterans totally clueless as to how some random kid just tanked a legendary spear strike. Principal Smith is left sitting there completely and utterly speechless. But Faye refuses to take an L. Whipping her leg up for a brutal high kick, she aggressively snatches her weapon back from his grip. Rearming herself, she violently charges back in, this time unleashing a terrifying omnidirectional barrage, meant to slice him into ribbons. However, to Louis's ultra-heightened senses, the whole world just shifts into deep and absolute focus. He literally parries every single deadly thrust, using nothing but his palms. Faye's brain completely short-circuits, while Principal Smith's jaw literally drops to the floor. He realizes Louis is completely shutting down the spear strikes with a totally unheard-of technique. The Dullahan family's signature spinning spear style is literally legendary in this universe, so tanking it like this proves the kid is built different. Louis finally flips the script, going on the offensive and forcing Faye to backpedal. This seriously ticks her off, and she demands to know what that bizarre move was. Louis keeps it 100% real, explaining it is just a basic part of his martial arts. He literally just adds a micro twist, right at the moment of impact, to completely kill the spear's rotational momentum. That explanation totally flies over Faye's head, leaving her completely lost. Louis just closes the distance, telling her he will just let his fists do the talking. He starts blurring in every direction, while Faye desperately swings, trying to lock onto him. Watching from the sidelines, Kane is mind blown. It looks like a straight-up illusion, because Louis is gliding around like a butterfly. Faye swears Louis is right in her face, but the split second she launches an attack, he has already ghosted to another spot. The dude practically looks like he is flying. Meanwhile, Louis is fully locked in, ready to flex his true style. The move he is spamming right now is the butterfly step, a flawless footwork technique pulled from a boxing legend. It features lightning-fast, weightless steps and a completely unpredictable tempo that perfectly counters Faye. Louis finally spots a massive opening and strikes. He lands a devastating punch, launching her backward through the air. Kane watches in pure shock, entirely unable to believe his eyes. Even Principal Smith is stunned that Louis could dish out that kind of heavy damage to Faye. The judges point out that even without using magic, basically nobody can drop Faye in a pure brawl, meaning this kid might actually be a once-in-a-generation prodigy at hand-to-hand combat. But Faye is absolutely raging right now because she is far from finished. She scrambles up and screams that her bloodline possesses an unbreakable warrior spirit, and she refuses to take an L this easily. She literally chucks her weapon into the dirt, completely confusing Louis because now they are both stepping into extreme close quarters, hand-to-hand combat. Faye charges at him like a raging bull, and Louis instantly triggers traditional martial arts like Wing Chun and Pak Sao to deflect her bone-crushing punches. Even so, his guard is not flawless, and Faye actually manages to bust up his hand. But instead of raging, the dude just grins and totally shrugs off the pain. Faye snaps at him, swearing that her family is not built on weakness. She immediately unleashes her level 3 crushing fist, but this time, Louis is ready for it. He seamlessly pivots into a boxing stance, and the two start trading absolutely savage blows. Lewis is insanely hyped right now, and something incredibly dark starts waking up inside him. He does not fight just for the sake of violence, but because he is totally addicted to pushing his limits. His entire vibe turns downright terrifying as he steps right into Faye's personal space, projecting a killer aura that literally makes her freeze in pure terror. She desperately throws up her hands to block, but it is totally useless. Lewis delivers a brutal strike, blasting her straight into a nearby tree. Principal Smith is seriously getting bad vibes from this dark energy. The rest of the students watching are totally speechless, completely unable to accept that a basic commoner has this kind of god-tier power. Out of nowhere, one of the guys starts feeling physically sick and shivering uncontrollably, realizing that this suffocating pressure is literally radiating from Lewis's overwhelming aura. These are the exact same bullies who were plotting against our boy earlier, and they are absolutely mauling right now, because nobody expected a commoner to be this insanely overpowered. The other dude, who was literally just throwing up a second ago, feels his stomach churning as he realizes they have to eliminate Lewis immediately. If the urban legend is actually true, they absolutely cannot let him survive. From a safe distance, they watch Lewis totally tweak out like a complete maniac, sprinting aggressively toward Faye, who is already battered and running on fumes. She barely has a millisecond to throw up a guard before Lewis launches another heavy hook, sending her ragdolling across the dirt yet again. He mercilessly charges her while she is still down. It is painfully obvious that his strength and speed are on a completely different dimension, and there is literally zero chance she clutches a win looking like this. He winds up for the final blow, and at the very last second, genuinely fearing for her life, she activates her martial arcane magic to shield herself and launch a desperate counterattack. The massive shockwave blasts both of them apart. Instantly, the dark vibe drops, and Lewis snaps back to his chill, normal self. He stares down at his totally busted hands, silently realizing just how broken magic actually is. Kane instantly rushes over, panicking and asking if he is okay. Lewis casually replies that he is fine, though he cannot say the same for Faye. Right at that moment, the snobby bullies who were camping behind the trees step up and call Lewis out for losing his emblem loudly, announcing that he is officially disqualified from the trial. Lewis glances down and realizes his emblem has been completely roasted to ashes. Kane instantly jumps into the crossfire to back up his boy, shouting that the whole thing was just a massive accident. The arrogant jerk just flashes a toxic smirk, pointing out that so there is zero chance Kane can help a filthy commoner rig the system today. Closing the distance, he barks at Lewis to drop his gear and commands him to bounce immediately, since he is single-handedly trashing the exam's prestige. He actually has the nerve to call our boy straight-up garbage, who needs to vanish. But a sharp voice suddenly slices through the tension. "Knock it off!" Every single head snaps in her direction. Lewis goes wide-eyed, completely stunned that she is still on her feet after taking that kind of brutal damage. The hater scoffs, asking if a royal like her is seriously shielding a nobody. He warns her she is risking an instant ban for bending the rules. Faye literally could not care less about his trash opinion. She steps up and owns it, declaring that Louis won that point fair and square. She openly admits she slipped up and blasted magic by mistake, offering a genuine apology. Kane's jaw practically hits the floor, the untouchable Queen Faye saying sorry to a commoner, but Louis instantly matches her energy, admitting that his own feral instincts took over earlier, meaning the apology should really be coming from him. She nods, accepting his words, though you can tell her pride is still bruised from taking a loss. She glares and mutters. Even so, she demands a savage run back before they officially step foot in the academy. The rich snob just cackles, flexing the fact that he has already secured 4 tokens, and guarantees Lewis will not even make the cut. But before the guy can finish gloating, Faye violently rips a fabric strip right off her battle gear and shoves it into Lewis' hand. That single torn cloth literally holds the value of the 14 tokens she hunted down. Boom! In a split second, our underdog rockets past the toxic rich kids on the leaderboard. Before dipping out, she throws a playful jab at Kane, then shoots a lethal glare at the haters. Weaklings have no business passing, she states coldly, and absolute beasts should not fail. She flat out refuses to let that kind of corrupted garbage slide on her watch. Twirling her massive spear, she drops a heavy reminder. There are only 10 slots left in this brutal trial. Now she is on a warpath to harvest way more than 14 tags to lock down her golden ticket. Kane flashes a wicked grin. Great minds think alike, he laughs. Without missing a beat, the dynamic duo sprints back into the chaotic battlefield, hungry for more loot, ready to crush the exam and settle their crazy rivalry. Louis just stands there, watching his 2 chaotic new friends fade into the dust, a rare soft smirk tugging at his lips. But he is completely blind to the fact that Headmaster Smith and a proctor are literally floating down from the clouds, locking their sights right on him. The top dog strides over to Lewis. His tone is ice cold as he lays out the harsh truth. Because his official tag was scorched to ashes, he is officially eliminated and getting escorted off the premises immediately. Surprisingly, Lewis just nods, taking the massive loss without a single complaint. Off to the side, the snobby rival bawls, hissing under his breath that this war is far from finished. He snaps his head toward his lackey, growling that he wants that street rat permanently erased from his sight. But his nervous sidekick stammers out a reality check if Faye's squad goes on a rampage and sweeps the remaining competition. Lewis could technically still finesse his way into the roster. The hater, totally blinded by pure toxic rage, ignores logic. A dark, twisted idea sparks in his mind. If a random participant suddenly dropped dead from a tragic accident out in the wild, nobody would bat an eye, especially if that victim was just a dirt-poor nobody. Seriously, the world would just keep spinning. The sidekick silently vibes with this sinister plot, shivering as a cold sweat breaks out just thinking about the absolute nightmare energy he sensed earlier, pouring out of Lewis. He is 100% certain that the monstrous vibe lurking inside that kid is definitely not human. It is like staring into a pitch-black abyss. Cut to sunset. Our defeated main character drops his massive pile of stolen badges into the proctor's hands, deeply frustrated. His bare-knuckle combat skills are top tier, sure, but going toe-to-toe against raw magical nukes, not exactly a fair fight. Staring up at the towering academy gates, he sighs heavily. His entire dream was to hack the system, merging pure physical brawling with arcane spells to become an unstoppable hybrid. But getting in through the front door just became an absolute nightmare. Fast forward to midnight. Lewis is trudging home down a dark street, stressing hard over his shredded, dirt-stained drip. He knows his sweet mom is going to have a literal panic attack when she sees him looking like a zombie. He wrestles with the idea of coming clean about or just faking a lame excuse. He is so zoned out he completely ignores the sketchy guy in a dark hoodie sliding past him in the shadows. But in a split second, while his guard is down, the hooded assassin lunges, thrusting a lethal blade right at his spine. Bam! Lewis goes full Matrix, spinning around and launching a brutal kick that sends the killer flying back. The stunned ninja gasps, demanding to know how. Lewis just wipes the dust off his shoulder. Are you joking? Your foul stench of murder gave you away blocks ago. Out of nowhere, a second masked hitman drops from the shadows, laughing arrogantly at our boy for acting so chill, when he is literally minutes away from meeting the Grim Reaper. Lewis narrows his eyes, instantly analyzing the threat level. These goons are not, meaning he needs to take off the training weights right now. Plus his instincts are screaming at him about a third insanely menacing shadow, lurking far in the distance, just watching. Without warning, assassin number 1 blitzes forward, with a flurry of rapid-fire stabs. Whoosh, whoosh. Louis flawlessly weaves and dips through every single deadly slash, like with a lightning-fast chop. He disarms the killer, snatching the dagger right out of midair, and sweeping the guy's legs out from under him. Hitting the concrete hard, the panicked ninja fires off a desperation counter kick, but Lewis easily swats it away like a pesky fly. The assassin scrambles backward, terrified, regrouping with his squad. Panting heavily, he warns his crew about the kid's god-tier reflex and cracked combat mastery, whispering that the terrifying intel they got was actually 100% accurate. Hearing this, Louis's eyes snap open in dark curiosity. Intel. Who exactly? The assassin smirks, finally dropping the intel. He actually has to hand it to our guy. For a rookie, his hand-to-hand combat is absolutely top tier. But catching hands is one thing, dodging spells is another. On cue, the masked squad locks into formation and unleashes absolute chaos. A deadly combo of crossbow bolts and slicing wind magic catches Lewis completely slipping. He barely dodges death as glowing projectiles shred the tree trunks right behind his head. Wait a minute, those razor-sharp gusts. They are the exact same wind arrows that tore through the battleground during his fight with those toxic bullies. Knowing playtime is officially over, our boy takes a deep, grounding breath. He taps straight into his core, channeling raw, untamed ki through his veins to violently supercharge his muscles and forcefully snap his hidden potential wide awake. Boom, he explodes forward with terrifying speed, launching himself right into the He weaves through the deadly volley, so insanely fast he literally becomes a blur. The ninjas cannot even track his shadow. Lewis is an absolute menace out there. He ducks rolls and delivers bone-crushing kicks, effortlessly tearing through their front line like a beast, until a massive shadow suddenly blocks his strike. A brutal shockwave of pure agony shoots straight up Lewis's arm. Reality check. The heavyweight presence he sensed earlier. This guy is not just strong, He is an absolute monster, radiating pure dread. Glancing around, the bitter truth hits him. He is boxed in by a mob of ruthless killers. A fence is out the window. Right now, surviving is the only play. He fights like a demon, but you cannot dodge the rain forever. A brutal volley of glowing arrows finally connects, slamming Lewis face first into the dirt. The hit squad collectively exhales. Thank God he is down, because just trying to pin this kid has them panting like exhausted dogs. Still, they are totally rattled. For a random street-level nobody, this kid was a million times harder to put down than a fully trained magic rookie. One arrogant grunt strolls up to inspect the body, completely clueless that Lewis is just playing possum, waiting for the perfect moment. Snap! Lewis's eyes fly open, and he chooses absolute violence. He viciously jams his fingers straight into the guy's throat, launching the breathless ninja backward. The head assassin is honestly baffled. Did this kid really just pull off the oldest trick in the book to secure a savage counterattack? But secretly he respects the cold-blooded hustle from someone so young. Bleeding and battered, Lewis snatches a dropped crossbow and aims it dead at the boss, spitting out a venomous question. How can you just stand there while your own guys get slaughtered? The leader does not even flinch, replying with zero emotion that trash belongs in the without breaking a single sweat. Raising his hand, the boss channels dark energy, summoning a terrifyingly massive glowing hammer out of thin air, muttering that if his shady client did not want the boy dead, he would have totally recruited Lewis on the spot. And with that sick compliment, he wildly swings the gigantic weapon straight at Lewis's skull. Our boy throws up a desperate guard at the literal last millisecond. The impact is deafening. The sheer kinetic force shatters his defense, launching Lewis through the air like a broken rag doll. But before gravity can even pull him down, the boss teleports right above him. Wham! He brings the arcane hammer crashing down on Lewis's chest, rocketing him brutally into the solid earth. Mid-beatdown, the killer shouts that Lewis's raw stats are way beyond any basic magic student. But a rookie is still a rookie, he mocks. Against a high-tier predator like him, Lewis is just completely out of his league. Assuming the kid is flatlined, the assassin casually strolls up to the crater. But halfway there, a chilling shiver crawls up his spine. Something is incredibly off. The thick dust clears, revealing absolute madness. Lewis is already back on his feet, locked in a fighting stance. The boss is genuinely shook. How is this boy still breathing? It is nothing but raw, unfiltered willpower, keeping our boy conscious. He absolutely refuses to fold, but the assassin's patience has officially run dry. It is time for the kill shot. He conjures a monstrous coffin-shaped boulder, a lethal martial technique called the Celestial Hammer, and chucks the apocalyptic rock right at Lewis's face. Staring death in the eyes, panic grips Lewis's heart. Flashbacks of his family, his hard-fought life, and his burning dream to conquer the magical world flood his mind. He swore to protect his squad. He swore to rewrite his trash destiny, whatever it takes. As that desperate ambition hits its boiling point, a switch violently flips deep within his soul. His energy warps into something dark and terrifying. That same psycho-unhinged aura from before violently erupts from his body. Throwing defense out the window, Lewis goes full savage. Screaming out his survival, he throws a gargantuan ki-infused punch that violently clashes against the stony coffin, leaving the assassin completely paralyzed by the sheer mind-bending pressure. A blinding shockwave detonates across the forest, and when the heavy smoke finally lifts, Lewis is on his knees, hacking up his lungs. But the boss is still standing, though he is seriously creeped out by the whole exchange. It actually feels like he just traded blows with an absolute equal. With Lewis finally tapping into his monstrous god-tier potential, the puzzle pieces click into place. The killer finally gets why that shadowy client paid top dollar to erase this kid from existence. Regardless, a job is a job. He slowly closes the distance, raising his glowing hammer high into the sky. But right before the hammer drops, a roaring tornado of blue lightning violently crashes down from the heavens. The blast completely ruins the ninja's swing, knocking him completely. Trapped inside a blinding vortex of high-voltage electricity, the boss panics. Before he can even process the trap, the lightning mercilessly fries him, leaving his body totally scorched and wrecked. Sprawled out in the dirt, Lewis watches the crazy light show in pure disbelief. Through the crackling sparks, Principal Smith literally floats down from the sky. Our boy is on guard. Principal Smith, however, flashes a hugely relieved smile. He is just hyped to see his favorite problem child, still breathing. Totally proud that Lewis managed to keep his inner monk. The principal tosses Lewis a glowing elixir to restore his stamina. The kid downs it like an absolute boss. The violent cyclone finally spits out the mangled ninja, sending him crashing face first into the dirt. Principal Smith storms over, absolutely fuming. He demands to know who had the sheer nerve to ambush one of his applicants right on Academy turf. Shockingly, the broken assassin actually pays his respects to the headmaster, gasping out that not even a legendary grandmaster could leash a total beast like Lewis. He warns that this ambush is literally just a tiny taste of the insane destiny hunting the boy down. Out of nowhere, the ninja straight up detonates right in Smith's face. Both Lewis and the principal are left completely stunned by the blast. Smith pieces it together, a forced self-destruct means. The shadowy assassin guild definitely slapped a massive bounty on Lewis's head. Still, he prays he is just being paranoid. Meanwhile, Lewis springs to his feet, absolutely blown away. That top-tier potion worked pure magic. He flexes his muscles, completely hyped that every single shattered bone is flawlessly knitted back together. Curious, he turns to the principal and asks why the old man always swoops in to save his skin. Smith just smirks, promising to spill all the details once they get back to Louis's house. Bam, reality hits Lewis like a freight train, and sheer panic washes over his face. He is insanely past his curfew, and his mom is probably losing her mind. He bolts toward home way faster than he ever threw hands with those villains. Left behind, Smith summons a glowing serpentine spirit named Skyly. He commands it to scrub the crime scene spotless, then casually trails after the panicked teen. Cut to Mantia, a gritty town up in the northern Kandria Empire. Outside the local orphanage, two grimy thugs are ruthlessly cornering Lakiela. They aggressively interrogate her, accusing her of skimming tax cash. They try to shake her down, completely disrespecting her right to her face, while she fiercely stands her ground, swearing that every single dime goes straight to protecting the orphan. But these goons do not care. Their vibe is purely toxic, and they are clearly out for blood. Just as a thug lunges to grab her, bam! A brutal kick shatters his jaw, sending blood and teeth scattering across the pavement. Enter Lewis. He made it just in time to rescue his mom, and Lakiela's eyes light up with massive relief. But that joy instantly turns into pure horror when she spots his shredded clothes. Before Louis can even check if she is all right, she sprints over, bombarding him with questions. Why is his outfit completely destroyed? Whose blood is that? And what is up with the bandages on his face? Blushing hard, Louis tries to play it cool. He fumbles out a lame excuse about scraping a tree during the exam, but she is definitely not buying that lie. Suddenly, the toothless gangster scrambles back up. He glares at Lewis, screams, and threatens to call in the whole squad to jump him. But before things escalate, Principal Smith smoothly steps onto the scene, totally diffusing the tension. He formally drops his name, and the moment the thugs recognize him, their souls practically leave their bodies. They realize they are staring down a literal grandmaster. Smith flashes a chilling smile, politely telling the goons to send his warmest regards to the local lord. The gangsters catch that lethal hint immediately, and sprint away like their lives depend on it. Smith then turns his attention back to Lakiela, gently stating he needs a serious chat about her son's future. She quickly ushers the two of them indoors. The moment they step inside, the principal's eyes lock onto a bizarre millstone. Mind-blowingly, the machine is grinding completely on its own, with zero mana involved. Looking closer, he is stunned to find crazy automated gadgets hooked up everywhere, from the floorboards to the rafters. Lakiela beams with pride, admitting she has absolutely no clue how Lewis engineered this tech. But honestly, she is just thrilled because her boy's genius inventions made their daily grind. She then connects the dots. If the prestigious headmaster pulled up to their humble home, Lewis must have flexed incredibly hard at the exams. Smith lets out a rich laugh. Doing something notable is the understatement of the century. Lewis literally shattered every expectation. He is totally mesmerized by the kid's raw talent, admitting he has only read about this level of power in the ancient Gaia scriptures. Back in the Dark Ages, when monstrous beasts treated humans like literal livestock, a single goddess-chosen prodigy rose from the ashes. This legend hacked the core of elemental magic, inventing the ultimate arcane martial arts. Fast forward 5 years, he and his elite squad absolutely decimated the monster horde, single-handedly dragging humanity back from the brink of total extinction. That epic victory birthed their entire modern calendar, kicking off the legendary holiday known as Liberation Day. It was the ultimate flex of human survival against the ancient texts dubbed this absolute unit the first hero. Lakiela is completely captivated by the epic lore, starry-eyed over the mythical savior. Meanwhile, Lewis is just scratching his head. Why did none of the local bedtime stories ever mention this guy? Smith drops the final piece of the puzzle. He explains that the hero's identity gets twisted depending on which scripture you read, but his true form. A man rocking pitch-black hair and bottomless dark eyes. Hearing that exact description, Lakiela completely freezes up. She shields Lewis like a fierce mama bear, leaving him totally stunned by her reaction. Principal Smith then drops a massive bombshell, revealing a top-secret truth, hidden from everyone except the absolute elite. You see, the legendary savior of humanity didn't just win the war. He fell victim to a twisted, all-consuming madness, festering deep inside his soul. He completely snapped, slaughtering innocent people, and committing the ultimate betrayal by butchering his own loyal squad in cold blood. And as he spiraled into total insanity, the higher-ups wiped his name from the history books forever. His terrifying descent into darkness became the ultimate warning. Hearing this dark lore, Lewis stares blankly at his trembling palms, flashing back to every terrifying moment. He almost let his own dark urges take control. Principal Smith slowly stands up, letting the heavy tension fill the room, and drops another chilling fact across every single nation. Anyone born with raven-black hair and pitch-black eyes gets instantly executed, just to stop another monster from being born. He locks his piercing gaze on Lewis, deadpanning, asking if the kid seriously thought a cheap box dye job would fool the world's most powerful elites. Lachiella, Lewis's adoptive mom, bravely steps right into the line of fire, realizing her desperate choice is fully exposed. She confesses she practically forced him to bleach his hair, not out of malice, but because she was absolutely terrified he'd be hunted down like an animal. She fiercely vouches for his pure heart, swearing he's a good kid. Lewis gently tells her to chill, logically pointing out that if the headmaster actually wanted to slice his throat, he'd be a goner by now. The old man is clearly playing a different game. At that, Principal Smith cracks a sly smile, genuinely hyped that a 13-year-old hasn't just fought off his chaotic inner demons, but actually put them on a leash, sensing the raw, unyielding aura of a brand new legend. Caught off guard, Lewis pauses, letting the heavy weight of the word hero sink into his brain. The principal shatters the illusion, explaining that this so-called era of peace is a total sham, with a catastrophic darkness always creeping just beneath the surface. Watching him completely dominate the exam hall, Smith realized those wild myths were actually real, deciding right then to take Lewis under his wing, to literally save mankind. Out of nowhere, he lobs an apple straight at Louise's face, but the kid snatches it mid-air with zero sweat. Smith casually adds that because Faye and Kane completely wrecked the competition, 99% of the applicants flunked the finals, leaving Lewis as the absolute victor. With a formal nod, he welcomes the boy into the elite academy, offering to personally train him into an unstoppable force. Mind completely blown that a living legend is betting it all on him, Lewis hesitates, asking the million-dollar question. What if he goes totally psycho, like the first hero? Before the words even leave his mouth, the principal blitzes forward, snatching the apple back, and drops a cold-blooded threat if he ever crosses that line. Smith will personally execute him on the spot. Fast forward to the next morning, Lewis is hammering away at a wooden fence alongside his foster brother, who is practically losing his mind over the fact that Lewis scored a VIP golden ticket straight from the headmaster himself. The guy keeps hyping it up as the ultimate flex, but Louis knows the dark reality. That midnight chat was basically a giant red flag, though he keeps his mouth shut to spare his brother a massive panic attack. Meanwhile, the bro is just yapping away about crazy tuition fees, drip-worthy uniforms, dorm rent, and every single chaotic detail of academy life. But Lewis zones out, his brain spiraling over the original fallen hero, wondering what twisted connection he actually shares with that ancient monster, especially since he's supposed to be just some random low-tier noble. He flashes back to how effortlessly Smith read him like an open book, instantly busting his fake hair color, and the bone-chilling death threat. Lewis genuinely questions if he can trust a single word coming out of the old man's mouth. Flashing back to last night while strolling under the moonlight, next to the towering Grandmaster, Lewis confronted him, demanding to know why he dragged his fragile mom into this dark mess. Knowing it would wreck her nerves, the principal bluntly stated she had to swallow the harsh reality, or else she'd end up as dead weight dragging him down. Lewis immediately fires up at the word burden, but Smith cuts him off with a lethal warning the second his dark secret leaks. His entire family is getting marked for death. As his mom, she has to toughen up and let her kid dive headfirst into the brutal trials that are literally just kicking off. Dropping that mic, the principal blasts off into the night sky. Left alone in the silence, Lewis realizes the harsh truth. The old man is absolute. He needs to level up, or everyone he loves is doomed. Suddenly, a swarm of giggling orphanage kids rushes him, completely breaking the tension. Little Lana tackles him with a massive, tearful hug, sobbing and begging to know if he'll ever come back. Squatting down, Lewis drops a soft smile, swearing he won't ghost, promising to pull up constantly, and even host sleepovers whenever the academy gives him some downtime. Because no matter what, this place is his true sanctuary. They lock it in with a pinky swear, a wholesome vow Lewis permanently etches into his soul. Out of nowhere, a sharp voice cuts through the crowd. A super stiff, high-class butler rolls up, announcing he reps the insanely wealthy Aranka clan, and that the young VIP Kane is personally summoning Lewis to their mega mansion. He hands over a crazy, fancy letter, complete with a legit wax seal, basically proving Kane wants to lock in their bro status before the semester drops. Totally hyped, Louis accepts the royal invite and hops inside the ultra-luxe carriage stationed in the heart of Candria, within the Heartsen Empire. Pulling up to the destination, Louis steps out as the butler respectfully bows low. He's officially standing at the doorstep of the Arancas, one of the most ridiculously overpowered aristocratic families out there. Just walking through the city streets, the sheer wealth and sky-high reputation of this family are impossible to miss. But Louis gets completely blindsided by the colossal estate towering right in front of him. His jaw literally hits the floor, finally fully grasping that Kane is actual elite royalty. Just as he steps up to the grand entrance, a familiar voice shouts out. It is Kane, sprinting toward him with totally hyped-up energy. The dude practically tackles Louis into a massive hug. Louis gives him massive props for putting on an absolute show during that crazy final exam and throws him a solid thank you, admitting he only cleared the trials because Faye and Kane completely saved his skin. He casually mentions wiping the slate clean on their little wager, since they are totally even now. But Kane immediately shoots that down. That is a whole different vibe, and the bet stays locked in. Plus, he knows Louis always had the raw talent to pass anyway. And the craziest flex, he actually earned Faye's massive respect, which is incredibly rare. As the two guys stroll into the mega mansion, a whole squad of maids deeply bows in perfect sync. Kane brings up how they couldn't actually throw hands and go all out during the exam, so he desperately wants to clash in a one-on-one spar before the semester kicks off, just to truly test each other's limits. He also promises to drop some exclusive insider knowledge on academy life and advanced magic tricks. Louis is totally vibing with the idea until a freezing voice shatters the mood. Glaring down from the grand staircase is Kane's mother, radiating absolute disgust at the sight of her son's new guest. Kane instantly steps up, fiercely defending Louis as his actual friend. But before a single excuse leaves his lips, her terrifying death glare shuts him down completely, leaving Kane frozen stiff. She violently clicks her heels down the marble steps, spitting straight venom right at Louis. She snaps that she literally hammered into Kane's head to exclusively pick top-tier friends. And the majestic doors of the Aranca bloodline aren't open for just any random stray. A totally basic nobody like Louis doesn't even deserve to breathe the same air as her son. It is a complete slap in the face to their legacy. She viciously reminds Kane that his only grind should be leveling up and dominating, instead of wasting time dragging around dirt-poor peasants. Kane is literally dying inside as Louis tanks this brutal trash talk right to his face. Before the boy can even blink, the elite matriarch aggressively closes the distance, demanding to know his scam for latching onto her kid. She openly treats him like a gold digger craving cash or clout, before sharply sliding a massive glowing gem ring off her finger. She brags that this single piece is worth thousands of pure gold coins, enough to fund his pathetic life forever. With ultimate disrespect, she tosses it straight into the dirt at his sneakers and orders him to grab his little handout and get lost. Watching this absolutely humiliating scene, Kane snaps out of his shock and begs his mom to drop the toxic attitude. He frantically apologizes to his buddy, but his heart completely sinks when he spots Louis slowly crouching down and wrapping his fingers around the flashy jewelry. Looking dead into her eyes, Louis coolly states that he only teamed up with Kane because he heavily respected the guy's raw talent. And if his own mother prices her, she should be completely embarrassed for downgrading her own flesh and blood. Kane is absolutely stunned watching Louis casually flip the script and roast the scariest, and oh boy, she is totally losing her mind with pure, unfiltered. Screaming at the top of her lungs, she orders the guards to literally toss this kid out of the estate. The security squad swarms in, but Kane instantly throws his body on the line to block them. He desperately screams that Louis is miles ahead of him in talent, aggressively reminding his mom that this so-called nobody shattered historical exam records and even crushed Faye in combat. But the furious matriarch isn't buying a single word of it. In her twisted worldview, a street kid casually dunking on elite prodigies isn't just some rare myth, it's straight-up impossible delusion. She brutally laughs in Kane's face, asking if he genuinely thought such a pathetic lie would actually work. Kane desperately doubles down, swearing on his life it is the absolute truth. And Louis casually drops the mic, claiming that hanging out with him is the ultimate cheat code to make Kane ridiculously overpowered. This completely pushes the lady over the edge, infuriated that some random peasant has the absolute nerve to talk back to her face. Her furious screech violently echoes through the massive grand hall, but then the heavy oak doors slowly swing wide open, and an insanely intimidating silhouette steps into the mansion. Without missing a beat, the deep voice locks right on to Louis, dangerously questioning if he truly believes his presence alone will level up his son. Every single head snaps toward the entrance. The arrogant mother's blood instantly runs cold the second she spots her husband, the absolute supreme boss of the Aranka Empire, just standing there. She totally panics, awkwardly stammering out the name William, and frantically rushes over, begging him to just ignore this mess and walk away, swearing that trash like Lewis could never touch their level. But William literally ghosts her, completely gliding right past, to face his son, who immediately drops into a deep, respectful bow. Lewis smoothly follows up with a polite greeting, instantly recognizing that Grandmaster William is radiating a suffocating god-tier energy, easily matching the terrifying pressure of Principal Smith. The monstrous patriarch completely brushes off the kid's hello. His piercing gaze locks onto Kane, demanding to know if this crazy claim holds any actual weight. Kane does not even flinch, firmly confirming that Lewis is leagues above him in combat. A dark smirk crosses William's face as he orders the boy to prove it, instantly erupting with an absolutely monstrous aura, dripping with pure, suffocating bloodlust. The gravity in the room gets so insanely heavy that Lewis's lungs literally freeze, feeling like a massive starving lion is staring directly into his screaming soul. The pressure relentlessly shreds at his skin, convincing the kid that William is actually trying to erase him from existence. But right at the absolute brink of collapsing, a crazy miracle kicks in. Even with every single bone in his body feeling like it is being violently crushed, Lewis somehow manages to flare up his own fierce energy, aggressively pushing back against the patriarch's mind-bending willpower. This crazy explosion of hidden strength totally shocks the entire room. Honestly, Lewis never saw this insane tsunami of pressure coming from a literal living legend. But hey, grinding for years in the deadly monster zones definitely pays off. He has stacked up way too much mental armor to just break down from pure killing intent. And man, this crazy showdown is barely even getting started. Oh, you know things are just heating up. Without skipping a beat, Louis channels his raw aura, detonating it outward with a shockwave so intense that even a powerhouse like William flinches. To the patriarch, this kid morphs from a mere boy into a bloodthirsty dragon, towering right over his own majestic lion. The spectral beasts lock eyes, the tension thick enough to cut with a knife, before violently colliding in a blinding explosion of energy. Kane's jaw straight up drops watching his buddy flex this hard. Against all odds, Lewis actually tanks the crushing pressure. But his tank eventually hits empty, forcing him to drop to one knee, completely drained. Kane instantly sprints over, frantically checking if his bro is still breathing, only for Lewis to brush it off with a breathless chuckle. This gritty display finally flips a switch in William's brain. Staring down at the boy, he demands to know the driving force behind this insane hunger for power. Looking the man dead in the eye, Lewis simply states he would do absolutely anything to keep his family safe. Without dropping a single syllable, William turns on his heel. But as his cape sweeps the dirt, he coldly roasts his own flesh and blood, telling Kane his mindset is seriously lacking, and he better start taking notes from his new friend. Hearing this absolute violation, Kane's mom is utterly shook. She scrambles after her husband, desperately begging him to dial back the harsh judgment. But the patriarch straight up ghosts her, freezing her out entirely. Watching his mom tremble like a leaf under his father's shadow, a brief flicker of pity twists in Kane's chest. But he quickly shoves that heavy vibe deep down. Pivoting back to Lewis, he flashes a grin and suggests they hit the practice field to kick. Once they touch down at the arena, Kane awkwardly clears his throat, totally mortified, as he apologizes for his family's super toxic drama. But Lewis waves it off like it is literally nothing. He admits the old man goes way too hard, pointing out that power-wise, the two teens are basically on the same level anyway, so he shouldn't sweat it. But Kane just sighs, dropping the painful truth that this suffocating pressure is just the daily reality of being the heir to an absolute legend. His dad only worships raw talent, meaning the only way to ever earn a nod of respect from that guy is to level up beyond belief. And honestly, with the way things are going, Kane admits Lewis gives off way more main character Aranka energy than he ever could. Trying to play peacemaker, Lewis argues that the intense trial was probably just William's twisted way of testing the wall, a messed up version of tough love. But Kane is definitely not buying that narrative. Tilting his head up to stare at the endless blue, he spirals into how alien the concept of love has always been in his household. Flashing back through his brutal childhood, it hits him that he has basically been locked inside these estate walls since day one, trapped in an endless loop of grinding, eating, and crashing. His combat drills kicked off by throwing down with feral beasts, back when he was literally bite-sized compared to them. The old man was obsessed with molding him into a legendary sage, just like his granddad, without a single clue why he just blindly swung his blade until his hands bled, all for a desperate crumb of validation. But at the end of the day, this massive mansion was nothing but a gilded cage. He would catch glimpses of normal kids, laughing and tossing paper planes, while he was forced to shed blood in death matches he could not even wrap his head around. Some days the paranoia was so bad, it felt like he needed a guard's green light just to inhale, Sure, the elites hyped him up as the golden prodigy, but those fancy titles were just icy iron chains, choking the life out of him. And the tighter the grip got, the harder he wanted to rebel. Deep down, he craved nothing more than to spread his wings and soar across the horizon with zero limits. But that fantasy is basically a massive pipe dream. Reality check. He is currently way too weak to even look his dad in the eye, let alone openly defy him. So for the time being, he has to play the good soldier, swallow his pride, and keep carving his path to absolute power with every strike of his blade, because leveling up is the only master key to shattering those chains forever. Plus, his old man happens to be an alumnus of the exact same elite academy he is about to enroll in. Kane's master plan: crush the academy and permanently snatch back the steering wheel of his own destiny, spitting out those heavy truths. He draws his steel and levels the tip right at Lewis's chest. With a fiery glare, he declares he is betting everything on his buddy to push him to the absolute peak, and Lewis does not even blink before locking in. Meanwhile, watching the boys clash swords from a hidden balcony, William coldly prompts his right-hand man for the intel drop he requested earlier. The loyal butler drops the bombshell intel, confirming Lewis is anything but average. His reports reveal that during the entrance trials, the kid whipped out unhinged combat arts that completely baffled the pros. He didn't just smash historical records to dust, he was actually the one who wiped the floor with Faye, relying purely on physical stats while she was throwing full-blown magic around. What's crazier, he is the headmaster's absolute favorite, since the old guy, literally, threw hands with the Assassin Guild just last night to keep the boy breathing. Digesting this insane rap sheet, William smirks, fully aware that this kid is built different and is an absolute magnet for chaos. Raising an eyebrow, the butler dares to ask if the patriarch already saw this coming, questioning why he would ever let a walking hazard hang out with the young master. But William is playing a totally different game. He knows perfectly well that dangerous magnets attract deadly threats, and getting pushed to the absolute brink is the fastest cheat code to forging true strength. Staring intensely at the sparring match, he tells his butler that surviving the insane crossfire around Lewis is exactly the brutal push Kane needs to finally awaken his true potential. Lewis is absolutely wiping the floor with Kane in a bare-knuckle brawl, right up until Kane finally snaps and pulls his blade. He dares Lewis to stop holding back and bring the heat. Chilling on the sidelines, William silently gives his kid props. He's starting to realize Kane's got a way better radar for spotting real talent than he ever gave him credit for. Without warning, Kane blasts toward Louis, triggering his signature wind lunge strike. But in a total split second, Lewis doesn't just block the hit. He whips a fist so insanely close to Kane's face that the dude doesn't even clock the counterattack. It isn't until Louis's fingertips literally graze his cheek that reality sets in. Catching his breath, Kane admits that juicing up speed with magic is a solid flex. Kane is totally mind-blown. Even totally maxed out on magic, he still got shut down like it was nothing. Suddenly, it all clicks. This is exactly how Lewis completely wrecked Faith. But while Kane is connecting the dots, Lewis totally zones out. Kane asks what's up, and Lewis hits him with a heavy question. Has he ever felt like something was fundamentally off about his own combat style? Kane draws a blank. After all, his moves are strictly classified secret arts, hardwired into the Aranka bloodline. His dad and grandpa both mastered this exact style to become absolute units. But Louis waves that off. That's not the point. He drops a bombshell. There might be a totally different path for Kane. One that ditches the family shadow entirely. Kane is completely floored by the audacity. Lewis casually drops his sword, snags a dagger from the weapon rack, spins back around and smirks. Want to catch your old man off guard? Over on the sidelines, William's eagle eyes lock onto them, just as the two boys launch themselves into the air. Zero warning. They hurtle straight toward the patriarch like human missiles. Flashback to just a few minutes prior. Lewis is giving Kane a quick masterclass, breaking down how speed isn't just an asset, it's the ultimate weapon, the undisputed king of combat. And he's not just talking about, it's about razor-sharp reflexes and split-second processing. Flashing back to how Kane performed during the second entrance exam, Lewis explains that his crazy natural agility is a match made in heaven with his support magic. But heavy thrusting strikes, those are notoriously brutal to perfect. And just because his grandpa was a god at them, doesn't mean Kane has to copy-paste that exact same legacy. To prove his point, Louis tosses him a pair of twin daggers. He drops the harsh truth. The only reason William hit a total brick wall and never reached Grandmaster status was because he bottlenecked his own potential by blindly cloning a rigid style. Kane doesn't have to fall into that trap. To truly unlock his raw talent, he needs to flip his entire playbook. Lewis asks if he's ready to rebel. A massive grin spreads across Kane's face. He loves it, calling Lewis a total freak compared to the stuck-up nobles. Kane swears he'll do whatever it takes to break his chains, even if it means mastering an entirely foreign arsenal. The two bros burst out laughing, splitting a quick smoke as they cook up a chaotic scheme to jump William, just to prove Kane's raw grit and evolution. And that right there is the exact origin story of how they ended up dive-bombing the family head. Kane channels a massive burst of wind magic, and the duo blitzes William at warp speed. The butler is sweating bullets, panicking over why his master isn't dodging, but William coldly orders him to stand down. Miss before impact. William casually swats away the strike like it's nothing. He gives Lewis the exact same effortless treatment. Unfazed, Louis unleashes a relentless barrage. He knows daggers are the absolute ultimate speed demon weapons, and he's ready to milk that insane agility for all it's worth. Stacking his raw skill with the elusive butterfly step, he tries to completely overload the older man's sensory radar and dump max damage in a fraction of a second. William's eyes actually widen a fraction when he clocks the legendary footwork, but he still effortlessly weaves through the kill zone. Meanwhile, Kane harnesses the wind to vault back into the sky, launching a devastating pincer attack from the blind side. Ditching the heavy sword, Kane feels weightless, practically floating on the air currents. He isn't just digging the new blades, he is absolutely addicted to the insane synergy of dual-wielding martial arts and wind magic. It gives him a surge of pure adrenaline. Mid-air, he realizes he has finally discovered his true calling. But William decides playtime is officially over. He detonates a massive shockwave of aura, blasting both boys backward like ragdolls. The patriarch is absolutely furious. Kane actually dared to trash the sacred Aranka fighting style, just to prove an edgy point, and he ruthlessly calls his son a naive fool. But Kane and Lewis stick the landing, immediately locking back into attack formation. They rev up the wind boosters, matching Lewis's hyperspeed. But with a lazy flick of the wrist, William parries the fatal strike, shoving Kane away and brutally labeling his own flesh and blood a coward. But as his dad charges in, Kane flashes back to Lewis's golden rule. Stepping back doesn't make you weak. But hey, if a tactical retreat keeps you alive, you take it. Kane falls back for a split second, recalibrating before his next strike. Planting his boots firmly into the dirt, he rockets back toward his old man. Right as William's massive hand reaches out to snatch him, Kane launches himself into a sick front flip, whipping up a fierce burst of wind magic, spinning like a miniature cyclone to slash from the blind spot. Right on cue, Louis dives back into the fray. As the duo gears up for a brutal combo, time slows down. Kane flashes back to a quick huddle they had just minutes ago, where Lewis had totally put him onto this bizarre but ridiculously overpowered move from baseball, a pitch called the changeup, where you completely bait your enemy by constantly mixing up your tempo and tossing in unpredictable variations. When executed perfectly, even the most basic jabs turn absolutely lethal. All it takes is a single millisecond of hesitation from the opponent, and you can completely blitz them, weaponizing sheer velocity to make those daggers hit like trucks. That exact mind game is what the boys are pulling right now. But William is a seasoned beast. He effortlessly parries Kane's incoming slash, brushing it off as a flimsy, low-tier strike. But at the absolute last microsecond, Kane hits the gas, faking him out completely. His glowing blade stops literally an inch from William's throat. William freezes, utterly stunned that his own kid just pulled a fast one on him. Meanwhile, Lewis is beaming with pride for his bro, ready to follow up with his own blitz. Suddenly, William snaps out of it and declares playtime is officially over. He shoots a stern glare at a heavily panting Kane and turns on his heel. As he walks off, he throws a cold warning over his shoulder, telling the boy never to drag the Aranka family name through the mud. Kane just smirks, taking that as an absolute win. After all, the old man did not straight up forbid him. His loyal butler shadows him on the way out. As they walk, William's mind is racing, replaying how those kids chained together relentless close-quarters dagger strikes, paired with lightning-fast hit-and-run tactics. For a top-tier grandmaster like him, seeing the insane potential of a totally new combat meta is beyond fascinating. Getting schooled by a couple of kids is definitely a wild feeling. Secretly beneath that icy exterior, his chest is swelling with immense pride for his son. Back in the yard, Lewis is absolutely buzzing over the chance to cross blades with a living legend. Honestly, he is just bummed the sparring match had to end so soon. Kane, though, he is practically on cloud nine. For the very first time in his life, he finally earned his father's elusive respect. Riding the greatest high imaginable, he decides it is payback time. He drags Lewis straight to the legendary Aranka family library to hook him up with a reward. Lewis drops his jaw at the endless walls of ancient tomes. When he finally snaps back to reality and turns around, Kane is already shoving an ornate box into his hands, telling him straight up without Lewis having his back. He never would have leveled up and found his true calling this fast. Popping the lid, Lewis is blinded by a stash of glittering gold and priceless artifacts, but the real treasure, a stack of ultra-rare magic grimoires that everyday commoners could own, absolute game-changers for his future training. Lewis pulls out a heavy, leather-bound book, squinting at the title. It turns out these are the official, heavily guarded Academy curriculum manuals, neatly sorted by academic year. Inside, they are packed to the brim with foundational spellcraft, elemental affinities, and hardcore breakdowns for both magical and physical combat. Kane casually drops the bomb that every single freshman is forced to endure the magic awakening ceremony. Lewis just blinks, completely clueless about what that actually means. Breaking it down, Kane explains it is this massive spiritual trial, where candidates connect with raw, elemental forces by touching the holy statue of the goddess Gaia. He mentions doing his own awakening at the Grand Temple, flexing that even elite nobles had to cough up a steep fee of 10 gold coins just for the privilege. Lewis is completely shook by such an insane